welcome to the Draw for Turn podcast, the first Draw for Turn podcast. We are super excited to be starting this thing off and opening it up. My name is Austin, and this is Dalton. We're going to be your hosts as we're diving into this. This is going to be a Pokemon trading card game centered podcast, maybe diving in a little bit more of just into Pokemon as a whole in general. I know that we've both watched a lot of the movies, the TV shows, played a lot of the games, but for the most part, where our just kind of like passion and heart lies for it is the Pokemon trading card game. And so, Dalton, give us a little bit of an insight of what was the purpose of starting this? This was kind of your idea.
Yeah, so I've played Pokemon, I think like most people our age, forever. One of the first games I remember owning was Pokemon Blue. Pokemon Blue is better than Pokemon Red. I remember owning that game first, collecting the TCG forever, and then sometime in like middle school, high school, I started playing the game, and I started getting more serious about it in XY. And so I started playing in the XY era, and loved the game, and then fell out a little bit, and then came back into it more recently. And so since I've come back into it, I've brought you along for the ride, and we've had a lot of fun with it. We've found a way to make our hobby meaningful, quote unquote, with how we spend our time. And so I think that my idea with this mostly was to give us an excuse to talk Pokemon and to kind of pretend that we're important as we play our favorite game.
Yeah, no, this has definitely been one of my favorite games, especially with due to all of like it. I don't want to say it's like given me purpose. I feel like that sounds really just like really sad. It has given me a lot of purpose. It's given me a lot of just with like in my own personal life. I work a lot. I travel a lot for work. And more recently, over this last just like 4 or 5 months, I've been trying to just get a lot more consistent in playing in person. Dalton and I, we always played a lot just whenever we lived near each other. And our text messages are just always being blown up with just the absolute worst ideas of decks and different ideas and memes that just
You say
get
worst
into.
ideas. I say that we are redefining the game.
Hey, I told you on my way here, I stopped at the local card shop and I picked up some stuff because I was like, hey, I've got a bad idea cooking and I gotta and it's like it's been and I'll go into a lot more of like what this is and the idea behind it and kind of like our pictures of the meta probably as well. But still, I mean, I haven't been playing as long as Dalton. I've loved Pokemon ever since I was younger. My actual first game that I played was Pokemon Ruby. So I was introduced to it in Gen 3, went back and played the older games because I just never got it until I like was living in Illinois, met a friend, and he had the game, and then fell in love with it since then. Was collecting Pokemon cards, lost some of them due to, the mom garage sale kind of thing. And then when I was in college, where me and Dalton met, we ended up just, hanging out, talking, finding that we have like similar likes and interests on different things. And then he drug me on into the Pokemon trading card game. Picked it up in, the best era of it during the right at the peak of Unbroken Bonds. So it was, it's probably the second worst era of just the more modern times. It's like first is, Silver Tempest, then next right underneath that is just awfulness that came out of that.
See, no, I would say Unbroken Bonds was fine. Like, Reshazard was big boy, but he was fine.
Yeah.
What was awful was COVID hitting, making the thing live forever, and then ADPization. Like, those two shouldn't have existed at the same time for as long as they did. Yep. I'm glad they never saw competitive play, but like that, I would put that above Silver Tempest. Just like, this is the worst. I don't want to play this game.
No, it was definitely awful. Getting into it, I showed up. I showed up to our local event with a just kind of like a theme deck mixed with the Alolan Ninetales GX theme deck mixed with like a few extra like cards that I had kind of tossed in there and spiced in there as well, and found out that I was accidentally playing Expanded at a standard just right after rotation, that I had no idea what any of those words meant, and even through all of those embarrassing moments still came back to love and enjoy the game. And like the fun part of like why I think that this podcast will be fun for both of us is that like we really truthfully do love this game, have a really big passion for this hobby, and want to like really turn it into something that is, more than a hobby, that we can like just move it out of our texts that we have that are just, spamming like as we're going through work during our regular days. and then also just kind of like see of different ways of how to look at different takes on the meta that are not just what is the best, like what is the Lugia deck, what is the like Arceus, like what is the ADPZ deck, like what is just like whatever the standard meta like 30% plus deck is, and how do you work around that, because I think that that's kind of like where both of us really thrive and shine. Because if there's anything I know about Dalton's favorite decks are meme decks. Dalton, what's like your like? I know this, but for our viewers and listeners, what is your favorite type of play style?
See, my favorite type of play style, it's like it's become more popular now, which
Yeah.
I love because that means I can actually do it. But it's like I love a good aggro deck where it's like I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time. That it's like I want it to be like turn 4, I've thrown my entire deck away. Do I win? Do I lose? I don't know. But like turn 4, turn 5, I've done everything I can do. I'm not here for a long time.
Yep.
But it's going to be a lot of fun until I'm gone.
And it was always really fun because those decks are like, they used to be like just the turbo style and idea. It like you always had to like think about what to thin out, had to put in and tech in different cards, and like more recently within the last years it's been like Mew can hit the bottom of its deck by like turn 2, Lost Zone can hit the bottom of its deck by turn 2. And so like what is, as we're moving into more of the Scarlet and Violet era, what gets you excited about just the new just like the new rotation that we're moving into? And then also for anybody who might not be a Pokemon like fan, I don't know how you stumbled into this, but like what is rotation, what are formats, what are sets, like why is this the perfect time to get into Pokemon?
Yes. So we are currently in sets are set in blocks, which are which are not typically, they are attached to games. And so Scarlet and Violet just came out, so we are moving into the Scarlet and Violet era of the games, which means the TCG is going to be Scarlet Violet cards forward. I mean, there's going to be some overlap right now from Sword and Shield stuff. So it's like when I came into the game, I came into the card game in XY, which was Gen 6. And so then after XY was Sun and Moon, then from Sun and Moon it went to Sword and Shield, and then into Scarlet Violet, which we are now. And so I'm really excited because at the beginning of every block, things just slow down. The end of every block is when it's always the worst. And so we were saying it's like Lugia and all of its monstrosity is just rotated. It just hit. EUIC is coming up, and it is going to be absolutely fine. Lugia will be one of the top decks. I am predicting Single Strike Lugia in the top 8. But it is weaker than it was. And then, like ADPZ, which we were complaining about, was at the very end of Sun and Moon, because the end of an era is always everything that block has, they throw it at it. Then they slow back down. And so I'm really excited for Paldea and all of the stuff that we're hitting now that is slowing us back down. And we can go back to evolving things. We can go back to doing these things. And that's when my turbo decks feel better, because it feels bad to throw your entire deck away when you're relying on a stage 2. That's why it's so much more fun to throw your entire deck away when you're relying on a stage 2.
Yeah, and it's also we're in such a weird transition period of like the Pokemon TCG, because we're coming from those decks like you were saying that are just like these big heavy hitters, get all of your resources out like on turn 2, whether that was like Lugia, even like Arceus and Palkia were like slow in that format, but they were still like turn 3 or 4 your board is essentially 100% set up. And that's like, it's a little bit ridiculous to think about that, of like that in those decks you're not even wasting all of your resources. Like you still have like in the shady dealings line of like the Palkia, where you're able to like Sobble, Drizzile, and Teleon, scoop up that Sobble, Drizzile, and Teleon over and over again to pick out whatever 50 cards that you want from your deck whenever you like really need them. That was considered slow. Like it couldn't keep up with like the Lugias, couldn't keep up with the Lost Box, and now we're in this weird transition where things are starting to slow down, but those faster decks are still fast because they have the inherent like power creep, they have the inherent just strength and speed that comes from the V Max and V Star era that is just been way too overtuned. So the craziest thing, and the reason why like I say that this is the best time to get into it, is because it is in that transition period. It's in that time where you can play those really big heavy hitters if you want to. You can play the stage 2s, and like the stage 2s currently still kind of struggle a little bit, but very slowly they're getting into like where they're about to overtake it. And hopefully, my biggest fear and concern is that like that Pokemon's gonna print something out that makes the stage twos way too overpowerful and like takes away a little bit more of the like the V's and the basics, because there are basic EXs that I don't want to get overshadowed, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
My thought is that I want them to. I want
Okay.
them to focus on the stage twos. I want them to do that because it's like talking about shady dealings and saying I hated that so much.
It
That
was
came
awful.
out of Sword and Shield, they said,
Hmm.
and it was not relevant until the end of the Sword and Shield era. And so it's like the kind of cards that we currently have will be relevant down the line. That I would say, and I think I've told you before, that Scarlet and Violet as a set, fine. Paldea Evolved is going to be insane. That it's like
Hmm.
that set is going to redefine the game. Scarlet and Violet was the transition. They're going to redefine there.
Hmm.
And so it's like I want them to redefine there, and I want them to make stage two the big thing because let's phase out the Vs.
Yeah.
But I think that what they're going to do is what they've kind of started doing with calling things rule box and then having like choice belt hits V and GX but doesn't hit EX.
Hmm.
I think they're going to start to have things that just single out Vs so that it's like you just get punished. If you're
Yep.
playing a V deck, you're going to get punished for it. But if you're playing EX, it's fine.
Yep.
So even though you have a basic EX, it's a two prizer, but it's not getting hit as hard as a V, which will just get punished for living in the wrong format.
Yeah. And hopefully that kind of stuff transitions. The only thing that's like tough about that is that then the decks that are built, like then the cards that are built to counter the V decks, the EX decks are now running. But like if there are now no more V decks, then you are then losing from that, and that comes into like the meta and the deck building and the gameplay and the predicting like what you're actually going to be focusing up against, and that's like that is legitimately my favorite part, because for those of you that don't know about Pokemon, the very unique thing about Pokemon comparatively to like the other two main trading card games in the big three, of Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic, is there's no sideboarding in Pokemon. And so, like, and I had this discussion with one of the people that I play with at our local card shop, and I was like, "Do you think they'll ever introduce like sideboarding, or like go into the Pokemon Center, go into the PC, trading out your Pokemon for different things?" And he was like, "No, because like you can completely shut down an entire deck by changing out like 3 cards." And so, the really unique thing, the really cool thing that I know a lot of people don't like, but is my favorite part, is that you have to be able to look at what's coming out, look at what's strong, and predict your 60 cards off of like a whole field of things that you're going to hit. What is it going to beat? What are you scared of? Like, how much do you tech against the things that you're scared of so that you don't like get overwhelmed by the things you're still trying to beat? And so it's like, so I love how with like those cards coming in of like that are gonna push out the V's, that adds even more intricacy into it, which still like gives the V's a little bit of an upper hand, because they're like, all right, maybe this tournament nobody texts for it, maybe this tournament nobody's expecting it for at least the next like couple of months, until like, or at least the next like, what is it, year, like 9 months to a year, where like the next rotation kind of comes through.
Yeah.
So
Well, what and it's like kind of like this perfect example is Drapion V.
yeah.
Drapion V is a garbage card unless you're playing Mew.
Hmm.
And so it's like when Mew was running everything, everyone teched to Drapion V. If you don't, if you're not coming up against Mew, you have the 1 in 60 chance of opening Drapion V, who is now a 2 prize liability that you just lose if people are bossing up and pulling out and echoing and horning it back. That it's like there's a lose con to teching that, and it's like
Yep.
that is so cool, and I love that so much because if you sideboard, you can see, oh, this is a Lugia deck. I don't need this, and throw that out. It's like, oh, that's so dumb.
Yep.
You need to be punished for trying to be smarter than your opponent outside the game.
Exactly. And that's where I feel like a lot of the intricacies of it come into it, where people don't really necessarily realize and see that. And that makes like the biggest difference between like the top players, who like obviously you have to be able to know how to play your deck and know the lines and know the combinations and know what to get into what, but you also have to be the master of predicting what is going to be coming into the tournament. And for the last 4, 5, 6 months of whatever Silver Tempest Crown Zenith has been, you haven't had to do that. It's been the same 3, 4 decks up in the top. And so same 3 decks up in the top, and it's just, all right, how can I beat that one? And then you kind of toss like everything over at these decks. There were a few different changes or different things, or people just won like randomly off of like, variants. But for the most part, it was Lugia, 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 a little bit of Lost Box, and then That was about
Mew
it.
kind of taking that third spot, but yeah.
Mew
Yeah.
with a little bit of Regis every now and then, with some ADP every now and not ADP, Arceus, Duraludon, whew,
Arctura.
PTSD, Arcadura. So, but yeah, so that's been really cool. But I think that I want to circle back before we dive into too much more about like the meta, too much more about like the trading card game itself, just for blanket statement overall of this is our first episode of the podcast, and so what, like, in your opinion, what are things that people can expect, like, tuning into this podcast, of just overall topics and ideas of what we're going to be talking about?
I think that what they can expect is not what we just did. What we just
Hopefully.
what we just did is talk about Lugia, we talked about ADP, we talked about Mew, and then the people who are playing like, oh god, another one. It's like, we're not going to do that because I can speak, like you said earlier, both of us do not play those decks. Like, Austin is a better player than I am. He's better at building decks than I am. What Austin does is he will go in and he will see what's working and he'll build hard counters. He's really good at metagaming. So some of his decks are going to be talked about. It's like, this shuts down this, it shuts down this, it shuts down this. Here's how I'm playing this rogue. I live in tier 0. There is nothing that I do that is semi-relevant. And that's why I think I'm successful, is that my deck that just rotated, I just retired it, I'm so sad, was Lilligant V-Star. And, like, this Lilligant V-Star deck, it could outpace Lugia. It just beat Reggie straight out. It could beat Lugia. It could beat Lost Box straight out. And it could beat Mew before I teched in a Drapion. That it's like, this deck could knock off all of the meta, but then it's also the number one thing I hear at locals, at tournaments and everything is, can I read that? Because I like to drop the card that they have no idea what it's doing.
Yep.
And you hit them with those are 60 cards that are legal to play almost every time you play. And so it's like, I think that's what they can expect a lot of, is yes, we will acknowledge what is relevant. We will acknowledge what is big. We will acknowledge what is popular. But what we're really going to live in is we're just here to have fun, and we're playing cards that are just fun, but we're also winning. We're not saying we're here to have fun and we went 0-7. It's like, no, we're here to have fun and we went 5-2. So that's kind of where we live.
Yeah. It was I was gonna say, it was really fun because, like, and what to expect in this podcast is a lot of that, a lot of metagaming, a lot of talking through counters, a lot of talking through, like, different ideas outside of, like, what is that top, like, the S tier, the tier 1, the tier 1.5s. Most of the time, most of my decks, like, probably live somewhere in 2 to 2.5. Most of Dalton's live in 2.5 to 3. and like, that's why, like, I've said multiple times that Dalton is the better player than me, because his decks are harder to play and worse, and he still does just as well as I do. And so alongside of that, probably some more things to kind of expect are just similar to, like, how we're talking about now, is just like, what was the past meta, like, what have we been kind of living in, what is like coming on up, what can you expect from tournaments that are going on right now, what are some of the things that are topping that, what are some of the, like, surprises that we caught out, and then also, like, what are some just, like, predictions and like suggestions of, if you want to go into, like, your next tournament, whether that's a local, whether that's a regional, whether that's, you know, if you want to trust us going into an international, best of luck to you, but, like, see kind of, like, where that goes. This is kind of, like, where a lot of that will come into play, is hopefully also trying to make it, you know, fun and goofy and lighthearted, because, like, Dalton, you played at NAIC last year, and then you've also played in Knoxville. And so, and I've only played in Knoxville for the regionals that came up over here in 2023. You did really well on a Blissey deck going in an NAIC, and then, you know, you played the Lilligant, and honestly, I mean, you went, what, like 3-3-2? Was that what you ended up as?
Yeah, I ended up 3-3-2.
Yeah, 3-3-2 on Hisui and Lilligant V-Star. I went 4-1-3, and then that was kind of the loss there was the one that knocked me out. And so, for people who don't really, you know, who don't play the top tier decks, and for people who are not, like, we're here to, like, help and have and create, hopefully, an area where this is going to be fun, where people can actually see and look ahead of, like, oh, that sounds like an interesting and neat meta. That sounds like an interesting and neat idea. Let's see, like, how do we counter that? How do we, like, talk through that? And then we're going to take you all the way down the rabbit hole, so be ready for that.
I also do want to point out that the deck that Austin played in Knoxville is a deck that is currently huge.
That's
And
true.
he played it before it was huge. That he had this idea that like that's how good at metagaming he is. This is before some of the top pro players were talking about it. Is that he was playing an Arceus Vulpix Pikachu deck,
Hmm.
and so he brought that monstrosity that is now everywhere. He did it before it was everywhere. So it's like if you want to trust us, that we can be those guys who are like, hey, yeah, I like that band beforehand. We are the hipster Pokemon players over here.
That's true. That's true. That's true. It was really funny because I was talking to Dalton because we had planned to go to Knoxville because that was the one that fit best in our schedule. We weren't planning like we're not planning to go to like every single regionals. We're gonna try to hit as many as we possibly can, but that still is very little to the ones that we'll probably end up going to.
I need you to talk me out of Milwaukee. I was looking at prices on flight today. I'm like, I could do that. School is out. My students will be gone. I could go to
Mhm.
Milwaukee.
Hey, we'll talk about. I mean, I'm not gonna be the one to talk you out of it, especially if you can convince me to come on along. But no, that's awesome. And but just with upcoming tournaments and upcoming different things, and it's like, oh my goodness, what was I saying? Oh, and then like just with going over into Knoxville, it before that tournament, I remember texting you all the time because I was checking like every regional heading on up to it. It was like what? It was like Orlando, Salt Lake, and like I don't know something else that was like right before it. And then I was checking Limitless all the time. And at one of the tournaments, I think it was Orlando, one of them hit like a top 32 that had Vulpix in it, and I was like, no, somebody else saw it. Somebody knows because I was going like because I was going to my locals and I was 3-1, 4-0, 3-1, 2-2. Like I was killing it at my locals, and so I was like, yeah, this is it. I've got the sauce, but now I've got to wait. I gotta wait for it to come around, and so it just kept getting a little bit more popularity. But yeah, no, it was super fun. It was super cool to see. And then as we're going into like just this rotation with EUIC coming up, there's the big decks. There's Lugia, there is Gardevoir, there is Lightning, Miraidon, whatever is tossed out, and there's a bunch of different variants of it. There's Lost Box, there's Mew, there's like the new weird Rapid Strike, different decks. So there's lots and lots and lots of different things, lots and lots of new stuff and changes. But ultimately, Dalton, what are you excited for like right now in this one? And then after that, we'll talk about with inclusion of Paldea Evolved as well.
Okay, so the deck I've been shuffling, trying to keep off the screen,
Yeah.
because it's distracting. Like the deck I've been shuffling is Paldea Evolved. I've got
Okay.
Proxies. That's what I'm ready for.
He's
Um,
already got it.
But the one that I am loving so much, and it really lives in my wheelhouse of I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time, and it is just insane, is Regidrago Beatstar.
Mhm.
That like I've titled this deck Dragon Tales as I've built it. That it's like this deck is so much fun. It has an answer to everything. Everyone knows what you're doing the second you start doing the things, but nobody can really stop it
Mhm.
because it's like what are you gonna do? Mill me? I'm milling myself. What are you gonna do? Kill my guy? No, I've got another one ready to go. That it's like it came out with Silver Tempest, and so people have been trying to make it work.
Mhm.
I don't think that I have like the sauce, but like I don't not. I'm successful with what I'm doing on it. That at my locals I'm going pretty consistently 3-1 or 4-0 on the ladder. I hit long win streaks on it on PTCGL. That it's like this deck is just so much fun. Um, I mean, even to throw back that it's like my favorite decks in the past have been Lilligant V-Star, obviously, and then Glaceon GX back in the Sun and Moon era. Like those are my two favorite decks. Dragons feels as good as those felt. I'm not as consistent with them yet, but it's like it is so much fun because it is so dumb, and
Mhm.
that's what makes it just the best. Is that it is truly just I am self milling to like I've never decked out, which I'm impressed by. I get down to like 3 cards left in deck, but it's like I love this deck. It's so much fun.
Mhm. Yeah. No,
What
that
about you?
one.
What are you excited for?
Well, I'm definitely like thinking a little bit past the like Scarlet and Violet era. Right now, currently, I have a Gardevoir deck built, and mostly because when I saw it, I was like, it came out, it had a slight pink tinge to it, and I freaked out because I thought it was going to be a fairy type, and they were bringing it back. And they
Hate to see
didn't, so I was really upset. But ultimately, it was just I was really excited because this even goes back to some other stuff we were talking about of what is going to be the new broken draw engine going into the rotation. And I went ahead and I bought like I bought a set of the draw Curlias, and I bought a set for Dalton also at like that I could get. I was like, oh, these are like 30 cents right now. I was like, this is going to be disgusting whenever we actually rotate over into the new things. So I picked them up, and they've been going up ever since.
I want to point out also, it's like, no, we thought this is going to be disgusting. We loved it, and we were talking about the fact that they're both level ball searchable. And like, so when they released these, like, this is insane. This is stupid.
Yep.
This is so good. And we started putting them in things, and then they announced God of War EX.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like Pokemon was like, these are insane. Look at these cards we did, and we're like, we told you. We've been doing this.
And so I was like, as soon as I could, I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be disgusting. And so I put him in like a Zorobox deck because I was just like, oh yeah, you know, rotation, maybe Zorobox will still be good. So I feel like there still is something hidden there that has just really untapped potential that I haven't really explored too much on into. I have like a few ideas with a Miraidon deck that I'm trying to put together that has a little bit more of. There is so much just bench snipe potential right now with like your main threat of bench damage is coming from like either the Magnezone V or it is coming from the Magnezone V Star or it's coming from like a Sableye or a Greninja, and I feel like people are really not respecting that on like the Manaphy side of things. And I've been trying to get something going with Zeraora V for the longest time. Not the Rapid Strike one, but like the Zeraora V-Star and V-Max. And I feel like now with Miraidon, with some Flaffy engines, there could be something there. Maybe toss in like a Baby Lecky, just kind of throw off like the prize trade and different things. And so there's like, I feel like there's so much potential there. I'm still messing around with it. I'm still trying to see if like what's going to actually come about it. But I think that there's going to be something there. So mark my words, podcast, you'll see this. This is going to be at my locals, and I'll let you guys know when it actually pops up and how it goes. But
exactly.
When we're going into Paldea Evolved, Paldea Evolved is going to throw things for such a loop. There's going to be so many different ideas that come out with Iono. Control is going to be rampant whenever just like it, like there's already a Snorlax block Pogo, like just control thing that's going on, and toss an Iono with that, then there's going to be no hope for anybody who doesn't know how to consistently play against the control type of style and deck. So I'm really excited to see kind of where that goes. What'd you say?
I said I'm not looking forward to that as an aggro player. It's almost an instant loss. It's like I'd scoop almost immediately. It's like I'm controlling. It's like I'm throwing my deck away, so you can just have this one.
Oh, you're milling me? Oh, thank you for the help. Let me try. Let me just start attacking earlier. It's like, wait, that's not what I meant. But I was gonna say, because there's like, if you're a control player, some things to like be on the lookout for with Paldea is gonna be like Spidop stocks are gonna go up, especially with like the Iono releases. Then it's like Iono and Giovanni's Exile Premonition.
Exile is the old one.
Exile's the old one. Premonition.
Yeah, maybe.
That sounds wrong, but I think it's something like that. It's Giovanni something where you can take an energy off and place one on your own. And then I mean, Crushing Hammer just also is coming back. There's also still Silene and the team yells here. So there's so much just like opportunity for control that's coming up, and then also there's just so much opportunity for like just fun different styles of decks that are going to be what I consider them of just like there's like the long range decks that are like control, there's the like aggro decks that are like the short range decks which are speed, and there's the mid range, not mid tier but mid range decks similar to like the Arceus and Palkia decks. But we're coming up with like there will be stage 2s, like in my opinion it's going to be like the Tinkaton, the Skeledirge, and the what's the cat? Meowscarada, that are all going to be on. You've got to watch them. You got to watch out for them. That's going to be the sauce coming in for the next time.
That's going to be the sauce right there.
I was going to say, that is, I know I wasn't going to leak too much on it. I know Dalton's really hype on the Meowscarada. I don't know if you want to share all of the sauce to it, but
I'm not sharing this. I won't share the sauce to it yet, but I'll tell you that it's like that deck is going to be. That's the one that I've been shuffling here. That it's like that's the one I've proxied. That's the one that I'm so excited for. And this is the only deck that I own and that I've built that can beat the dragons.
Yep.
And so it's like my dragons beats Mew, my dragons beats Lugia, my dragons beats Lotsbox. Like it cleans. It comes down to variance sometimes on the single prize trade, but it does well. It cannot consistently beat this. And so I'm really excited for this.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm really excited for this is that it's like, yes, Glaceon GX is one of my favorite decks. I'm a grass deck player. Glaceon GX is one of my favorites because Glaceon is my favorite Pokemon. But like, TCG wise, grass decks are my favorite. I love to play the grass, and there are so much cool grass decks that are coming with Paldea Evolved, like the Meowscarada, that is just
Mhm.
going to be a lot of fun. And I remember Meowscarada. I've got the sauce right here. This is the deck that's going to win something. I don't know what it's going to win, but it's going to win something.
I'm telling you, the way, like, I think that Meowscarada is going to be, like, at the very least, like, tier 1.5, and just, like, it's just damage manipulation.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff, especially with, like, some, like, I don't know, Halitratex or whatever, but, there's so much opportunity for, I don't think people are really going to be looking at it in similar to the way that you are, in my opinion, but, it is really, like, it's that, and then also, like, I mean, I played Reshazard when it first, like, I played Reshazard and I played Guardian when I first started, and you know, big tag team guy. So I both, like, one of those decks is super aggro, which I love, like the fire types. Fire types were some of my favorite Pokemon, but I also love the fairy types. When the fairy types are a little more grindy, a little bit more slower, a little bit more like, all right, I'm gonna just keep like eating all of your hits, setting on up, and oh shoot, now you're dead. And so I'm already looking forward to like the Skeledirge. I'm already trying to figure out like what's the next tech and next thing that goes into Gardevoir that makes it like insanely OP. And then I'm gonna get this like weird funky electric deck that's gonna be working that doesn't work like electric decks. So, but
Which make my wife mad. She's an electric player.
oh man,
Yeah.
and also it's funny because like so your wife and my wife, me and Dalton, we grew up on Pokemon. Our wives, they were unfortunate, unbeknownst to them, they married into extreme nerddom,
Yep.
which you know they knew what they were getting into. I don't think that they knew the extent at which they were getting into, but we have more recently been able to try to convince them to play a little bit more. There's some like GLC that we've played like all together. There's just some like, and your wife, she's getting a little bit more into just standard, like a little bit alongside you as well. And then like alongside this podcast, you might have noticed we're the Draw for Turn podcast. When we're gonna be going to the couple of regionals that we end up at, Draw for Turn team. Look out for us. We'll be there. We'll be like super excited if anybody like checks out this podcast and really recognizes us from that. But we'll be like, you'll always know whenever you play up against us, like, oh man, this is not gonna be the standard thing that I'm used to playing against. Let's see what we're gonna face today.
Yep. That's the dream. Is I want you to look at me and say, "Can I read that?" That's it. That's I know I succeeded.
Well, it's like that's the thing of like that. I also love like think that our podcast is going to hit on a lot is that there's so much untapped potential in so many different cards and so many different things that are coming in, especially with like rotation happening as well. And that was kind of like the beauty of with my Vulpix deck, which nobody ever really expected, nobody really ever saw. Of just, oh wait, I can't attack this. I have to play weirdly around that. I'm not used to doing that and used to hitting those like different things, and so which caused like at first the confusion and at first different things. And once people started to kind of learn about it a little bit more, they could figure it out ahead of time. And then I was known as the Vulpix player, even to the point where it's like when people show up, they're like, all right, guy, what are we doing today? So, but I that's exactly what I want. I want people to be able to like pick it up, read the card, and just be like, how in the world are you trying to make this work? Because I bought the Arcanine EX cards. They're 75 cents right now. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to pick these bad boys up because there's going to be something that comes out of using these. Fire has so much support. It's going to be big.
It's going to be big. I'm shocked Fire's not big. I don't want Fire to be big because, I play grass cards. But, like, I know Fire's going to be big. It's very surprising that we went through Sword and Shield, honestly. It's like we had Centiskorch, which played like a fire deck, but like we didn't have a fire deck during Sword and Shield, which is just like shocking because Charizard. So I know it's going to be, they're setting it back up to be big again.
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely like it is going to be good. It still has so many limitations on it, which I think is really cool because like even the Arcanine EX, it's like one of the weaker EXs on like an HP standpoint because it only has I think 280, and it also only hits for 250. So you need different damage modifiers to actually get to that point. But it has fire acceleration through like both the Charcadet and the magma basin. It also has the heat boost from the Rapidash. So it has all of the pieces to making it great. It just doesn't work. It's got too much to take up. It's so frustrating because I'm like, I want this to work so badly and it just doesn't.
And that's kind of what we hinted at, we talked about earlier. So it's like, let's jump into it now. That it's like, the reason it's so frustrating with fire is that it's like, fire decks, I think, should just be like a fire. It takes a second to light and then it burns and it takes everything else out with it. And it's just, there's almost too much kindling in the Arcanine deck right now. Is that it just needs something a little bit more. It needs to cut one of those things. And that's why I do think fire is going to be insane. I believe in you to build a good Arcanine deck. I just don't know if Arcanine's going to be the ongoing attacker. I think they need to release something because there is so much setup there. It needs something that can take it.
It's hard because it's like the Arcanine deck it needs a minute. Like, it needs to just get so many things set up on the bench. Like, you need your Charcadet, you need your Growlithe, you need, like, if you're actually going to use Ponyta for, like, Ponyta and Rapidash for, like, the extra damage, you need, like, Ponyta on the bench. And that's all, like, turn 1. And when you're facing up against a deck like Lost Box, you don't have like a ton of time to really not get stuff set up. So it's like on either their first turn going second, you could be losing a Growlithe, or on like their like second turn going first, even after, like, you're still probably losing a Growlithe. Like, and so, or you're losing a Growlithe, you're losing a Charcadet, you're losing like something that is part of your setup portion, and it's hard to recover after that, especially when you need so much support, like so many supportive Pokemon, and then you're also putting damage counters on your own Pokemon, so you're helping out the enemy. So,
and so much sniping, so you kind of want the Manaphy, but then there's also sniping that goes through the Manaphy, so it's...
And that's why, like, the Skeledirge deck, I think, is going to be much better, even though it takes much more setup, even though it takes much more time. The thing that's going to be really cool about that is that, like, it has like a lot of higher potential of like actually hitting for damage, and then there's like a lot of just opportunities to be able to heal it off for different things, and to be able to heal it off, move your energy around. It's also I'm pretty sure it's a 2 energy attacker to actually like hit the damage and numbers that you actually need to hit for it. And then and it's just it I also love how with Skeledirge they're just like, all right, we're gonna make something unique, we're gonna make a fire ghost type. And then Chandeler's over here just like, what the heck? Why am I chop liver over here?
Well, I love the fact that, like, off of like the random, we're gonna make it unique kind of thing, is that every gen since Gen 4, they have made like, we're gonna be really unique, make a grass ghost type, and that there's always now a new grass ghost type, and as a grass player, I love it. But it's also, it's like every time I've seen this before, like the last gen, okay.
All right, let's do it again. Why not?
Yeah.
And
run it back.
I feel I don't know if this is true, but I feel like with the cards and with the Pokemon design, they get a little bit nervous about branching out too much because they don't want their like fan base to be like, well, I hate this thing. So it'll be interesting to see kind of like where stuff goes, because there's so much stuff that like on the surface of it looks really underpowered, but like there's so many opportunities to make like cards really good, because like even like especially with like this thing that's coming up that I was thinking about, there's Iono, which completely obliterates the Tinkaton, which they just came out with. For whatever reason they wanted to make that happen, but you can Tinkaton, but you can play cards like Zizu, which can get you whatever your opponent has +1. So if they're like still at a higher card count, if they like, you know, be barreled, or if they Revavroom for like 6, now you have 7, and then like then you can also like use whatever other cards that you're using to even get your hand up higher, so you're already coming back in, you're swinging different things. There's so much, like, the cool thing is that like there's so much counterplay to different things that are like coming in now, to where it's like Iono to slow things down, and there's different cards that like help to speed up and accelerate, similar to how like the Lost Box engine works. So I don't know, I'm interested to see what pops up at EUIC, because I think that this will be like, no shade thrown to Japan, but I think that EUIC will be the first like real challenge of the new meta, of the new decks, where you have not just one region, but you have like the world coming in, different ideas, different opinions, and I'm excited to see something new, because I feel like there's going to be a new take on something that we haven't seen yet. I'm predicting for it to come out of a like Gardevoir engine, but like what like thinking about decks that are coming in for EUSC, what are you excited to see? What are you hoping for?
What I'm really hoping for is a Lugia deck that's not single strike. I think now that Lugia has lost a lot of what it's doing, that Lugia can now become what it should have been, which is just a good engine.
Yep.
That at the end of the day, ADP, as dumb as it was, should have just been an engine. That GX attack is what was broken, but being able to swing 180 and charge
Yep.
to anything was nice. That it's like Pika Ram had the same thing, but it was just lightning. That it's like ADP should have been really good to just charge. Arceus was kind of broken right when he came out and then immediately got nerfed because it just became an engine. And I think that now Lugia's lost a lot of the things that make it like it's a Lugia deck. I think now it's going to be an X deck with a Lugia engine.
Yeah.
And that excites me. I think that Single Strike is going to do fairly well. Tyranitar is good, but Tyranitar might not be the move. I think that just finding something to make Lugia just make something real dumb run, that's what's going to happen, is that people are they're going to drop the V, the EX, whatever onto the bench, and then like, how was that? And then Lugia charges it, you're like, I just lose. That just happened. I just lost there. That's what I think is going to happen.
I think that with Lugia, I think that there is going to be I think that there should be a single strike box of like just one prizers, because I feel like there's a lot there's mostly dark and fighting, but there's also like a couple other ones that are just kind of like randomly out there that I think that don't get a lot of like love and don't get a lot like seen really. And I think that there's a lot of potential to like trickle those in as well and like use those what are those, the urns, the urn of vitality, to really like shuffle those back in and really like reuse and utilize like those cards over and over and over and over again. And I think that there's also like high potential for it to be like a rapid strike deck as well, because there's still like, for both of them, there's impact energy and there's spiral energy that like Lugia still is untapped to where it's like it's not a true engine, like how you're saying. They're still using double turbo regenerative gift V Guard, so it's like it still is attacking through Lugia as well, which I think I think you should have that as potential, but that it still feels like how you're saying it's a Lugia deck with something else trickled into it. And I want it to be similar to how you're saying. I want it to be a single strike deck with other stuff trickled into it. I want it to be a rapid strike deck with other stuff trickled into it. I want it to be a X deck with other stuff trickled into it.
What I really want, and I think would be so cool, is that we both built it before, and I was playing with the idea of it after I had to take it apart for everything, is that we called it the Kick and Chicken. So Blaziken Zeraora. So Blaziken VMAX and Zeraora were such good partners together, and that deck ran so well, but then it just got power crept out.
Yep.
That I think Zeraora V, having those and having Lugia to set them up, that you could set up a Lugia, hit with Zeraora V, and just switch between the two of them, that deck would work, and it would be so much fun. I think that deck could be insane, and I think that Lugia with that could be insane. It's like, that's the kind of thing I want to make Lugia run with. I don't want to play a Lugia deck. I don't want to have Lugia, Archeops, I'm hitting with Lugia and knocking everybody out with Powerful Colorless. That's so dumb. I hate that so much. But like, turn one Lugia to hit my two Zeraoras to just switch between each other, that sounds like a lot of fun. I think that's a deck. I think that Rapid Strike Lugia could be awesome. Just no one's thinking about it.
You got to do a Rapid Strike Lugia deck that is like back to the Rapid Strike Malamar. So you've got Lugia, then you've got the Archeops that take up like you only really need one Archeops also for like something to run through with that. And then like you're still able to play stuff like the Karinas. You can still put like an Octillery down. You could even do like Octillery and Bibarel. So you only need like just one Archeops, maybe two if they're like threatening to actually knock it out, so you don't have energy acceleration anymore. But then like there's just oh man, that sounds awful already, but I would love to see it.
I'm excited. I think it works.
I think it's awful, but I think it would be so awesome and so fun to actually watch it do it.
Lugia engine sounds amazing. Lugia like I'm so done with Lugia, and I was so ready for it to rotate. And now it has. That it's like it cannot do what it was doing.
Yep.
I'm so excited now to see how it can kind of shift in and become that engine. And I think that it's going to be so much fun. Lugia Mew is on the horizon. You're gonna get Lugia powering up the Fusion Strike Mews, and it's gonna be phenomenal.
No, I was looking at something the other day, and I got a Latios, like the baby Latios from one of the prize packs from when we were playing at our locals. And I was looking at him like, there's so many Fusion Strike cards out there that nobody even thinks about. Nobody even knows about because it's just Mew. Because, like, the whole thing that I was talking about was, like, the Mew engine, and the thing that makes me so mad about Genesect is, one, Genesect should be once per turn. Just, people can hate me on that. That's fine. I'm going to live in that world. Don't care. But, like, Mew should be a toolbox. And I've talked about, like, building a Mew toolbox deck for, like, forever, because it'd be so great, it'd be so fun, because you have like your Genesect, you have like maybe one, maybe two Genesect, you've got two backup attackers that you just slap on down onto the bench whenever you get a minute, and then it's like, all right, you're doing, what is it? I've got it over here. Luster Purge over on the Latios. You're doing, it's not called Red Assist. I think it's like called VMAX Guard or something like that. So you're guarding against the VMAXs. You can use the Meloetta. So Meloetta is able to do like the 280, and you're using the Mew VMAX as just the person or the card that's actually like cycling through and using those kinds of attacks and use different things. And I mean, even if you toss in a Lugia in there and then you're accelerating all the random energy to different things, it'd be awful. I feel like it's gonna be really, really bad. But
it'd be so much fun. And
that Deoxys that has been that comes out in the League Battle deck for Mew VMAX has seen a lot of play right now in like the Fusion Strike builds of different things. So it's out there. It's ready. It's coming in for different things. Gonna take on the world. And
we're talking the Lugias.
We're back from our commercial break. The commercial was probably nothing, but welcome back. And we're talking over about the Lugias. And there's what other cards do you think that could potentially be engines, or that like should like be looked at or thought at for like different engines and like posted into different things?
Okay, I was playing with something. Let me find the deck I was playing with.
This is always how it starts. I was gonna say, this is our first episode, you're brand new to this podcast. This, like, a text always comes through of like, so I was thinking about something.
I want to say before, the best that we've ever done for I was thinking about something was I texted him at like 5:30, 6 a.m.
Because we're both old men and we don't sleep.
And I texted him a picture of the Grinch, I had an idea, an awful idea, a wonderful, awful idea. And my idea was Arceus Pikachu V Union. Mm-hmm. And it worked so well.
Yep.
And I was playing it all the time at locals, and there was once a new guy who came, and I was just beating him silly with Lilligant. And so I was like, I got something else if you want me to play that. And I pulled it out. And this was before Gardevoir was announced, so I dropped the Ralts, and they knew exactly what I was doing. And the guy next to me looked at him and said, don't do that. Don't do that to that man. Don't. And then, Pikachu V Union.
We want him to come back.
Like, that's the thing. The one that I think is about to be really big, here he is. He's not an engine.
Okay.
But I think that this is about to be huge because of everything that's going on, and you can punish and you can capitalize, is the Machamp VMAX.
Okay.
This is about to be the play.
Okay.
Is that he's hitting the fighting weakness. He can do the things he needs to do through fighting. And then his first attack for 2 energy, 1 fighting, 1 colorless. It's if your bench Pokemon have any damage counters on it, does an additional 140. So it's 80 plus that 140. Spreading damage is about to be the new thing that you have to do. That it's like Sableye is hitting it right now. Meowscarada is about to be doing it. Gapejaw, I think, is about to jump up in stocks. That it's like spreading damage and spread is going to be the new thing. For 2 energy, which can be accelerated through Koraidon EX, this is about to be the play. This card right here is about to go up in stocks. I got this one for like, I think, $150.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's about to be an expensive, very good card because it's like 80 plus 140 is a magic number, and it's hitting it for really cheap. You can accelerate it very quickly, and if you just put 2 Machamps on the bench, they can't stop you. Mm-hmm. And if they do try to stop you, they can't kill you, which powers up Machamp.
Yep.
So it's like this card is about to be crazy.
And the only thing it really loses to is Gardevoir, and and there's still plenty that you can like bring into in Tekken against that can help to like play against it. And that's like, I mean, that's similar to like the other ideas, like like you were saying, the Koraidon, like that, like the craziest thing to me. And I know B rotated, which makes me super sad. But like, you've got Koraidon, you've got what is that? It's not Chip Ice Pick. That's the old one. It's Lucky Pickaxe.
Yeah, the pickaxe. Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Something pickaxe.
But yeah, the pickaxe.
And that accelerates the fighting energy. And then you have Grant, and like Grant's insane. Like you can like Grant is so broken that I don't think that people even like necessarily realize it or have it on there. Like fighting, fire, and then in dark are like the three types that are so right on the fringe that nobody is playing for like just for some reason. And it's crazy to me because it's like nothing is really like there's no fighting or grass that's countering dark. There's no and like fighting should be really big because Miraidon is also like a good portion of what you're going to go up against. And if you can find something that is fighting and dark, then you're going to be like have a good matchup over into
Gardevoir and Miraidon.
Exactly. And then that's going to be like 40% of your games, 40% of your matchups, and then you could probably end up going even into some other different spreads and different ideas. And then with fire, you know, I just want it to be so good, so bad. Nobody's letting it.
Yeah, I'm there with you because it's like, I love grass. Grass needs to be good. I have hope in this boy, but I don't know. But it's like that fighting is on the cusp. I think that everyone saw Miraidon's ability, and everyone's like, Miraidon's the better one. I don't think it is. I think Koraidon's going to be the one that like shocks us.
Yep.
Because even on the ladder right now,
Miraidon's the one that shocks us. It's lightning.
Oh, you got me. I think Koraidon is going to be the one that's ground shaking. That is going to be down the line. It is just like we didn't see it coming, and it does so much stuff and sets things up so well. I think fighting is right there, and I think Machamp will be the one to kind of like push it. I don't think Machamp will be in game. I think Machamp will be really good for like a rotation, real quick, a set. But I'm real excited because I think Paldea Evolved makes Machamp real good for a set.
Oh man, and that's like, oh man, it's gonna be so good. There's so many different things out there that are going to be so good. And also the really cool part now is that like this is going to be one of our shortest blocks, which is also really nice because there wasn't a lot that came out of the Scarlet and Violet era that really like super shakes up the meta, other than the fact of, you know, it tore away a bunch of cards. It didn't put anything into there that was like obscenely broken. Like
crazy.
Like Gardevoir is good. Gardevoir is not broken. And Miraidon is good.
Fine.
Miraidon's not broken. Like Miraidon is very easily beatable. If there's any decks that are going to be running Path to the Peak that you're using like non-ability type Pokemon to really attack with. Also, if you're playing Vulpix, you basically just beat Miraidon. Like there's there's not like, unless if they have the Magnezone, and even still with the Magnezone, you're typically like taking off damage on different things. And it's games like that, and it's things like those that like, and the ideas around that for different just matchups where it's hilarious that everybody just ends up playing whatever they think is like the strongest deck, which makes it the strongest deck because everybody's playing it. Like there's different ways to get around it. There's different ways to play around different things. Like I never thought that an Arceus Vulpix flying Pikachu deck was going to be the one that almost got me into day 2 at the first ever big tournament that I was going into. I only got out on round 8. Like I made it to round 8 with still being able to play on different things. And I hit and it was the one matchup that like that deck can't beat in Arceus Duraludon, and that was the one time that I hit it for the entirety of the day. And so like I'm just saying, whatever people come into and whatever they want to be able to set it up as, there is a lot of high potential for people to be able to like come in and change different things.
And it's like, I think that Miraidon's getting a lot of hate right now online, and that everyone's like, oh, it's overhyped. It's not as good as we thought it was going to be. And it's because it's not supposed to be. Everyone was like, oh, this is the next Lugia. No, the next Lugia comes in like 8 months, when we're all like, please, 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 Gen 10 replace Gen 9. I'm so tired of standard format. Like, that's when the next Lugia comes. This is actually a really good card coming into where we're going.
Yeah. Now, Miraidon is incredibly balanced. Miraidon is incredibly fair. I did not think it was coming out. And, like, I mean, just in general, I was like, why is this so much more broken than Koraidon? But like, I mean, Miraidon, it's got like 220 HP. It takes like it's got 3 energy to actually be able to end up attacking. And all of the lightning attackers currently right now, until I decided for some good ideas, are like multi-prize Pokemon that you're putting like a lot of danger in play by actually doing, and you have to commit a lot of resources. And if you don't hit the stuff on the turn 1, you're still probably gonna lose. So it's, I don't know. There's lots of different stuff where this is like the first time in a while where like the format has felt balanced, where it's not just completely dominated by one specific deck.
Yeah, and I love it.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. So we're about to end up finishing up on our first, podcast coming on in. We, like we said, the things that you can expect coming on in here. Expect Pokemon trading card game content. Expect memes. Expect dumbness. Expect puns. That's specifically where I come in for a lot of stuff. And really, I mean, come on, like, we would love to hear in the comment section of what are different things that you guys are working on, what are different things that you're trying to tech in, where are we wrong in our predictions of the meta for, like, what are the different types of things that maybe we should be looking at more of, or looking out more for. This meta is going to be changing very quickly over the next couple of different weeks, especially going into Paldea Evolved. So there's lots and lots and lots of different ideas, lots and lots and lots that's going to be coming from it. So, I mean, we don't know everything. We just like to pretend like we do. So
exactly. But if you try to tell me that Machamp VMAX is not about to be meta shaking, you're wrong.
It's okay to be wrong.
That's where it's coming from. It's going to be Machamp VMAX.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's okay to be wrong.
It's the champ. It is there, right there.
He's the champ. He's my champ.
He's
my champ. He's my champ. Your champ. He's our champ. Our champ VMAX.
Exactly.
Is our champ VMAX there?
I will win Milwaukee with Machamp VMAX. That's my word.
Oh, so you're going now. So we're going to Milwaukee.
I have to go defend my honor. Machamp VMAX is gonna win.
That's awesome. So if you got anything out of this podcast, make sure to watch out for Dalton. He's heading over to Milwaukee. Check him out. You already know what he's playing. It's gonna have a Machamp in it. Don't know what the other 59 cards are, but there's gonna have Machamp.
It's gonna be a bunch of cards that I've illegally written on the word Machamp. I'll have 60 cards that say the word Machamp. That's it.
It's only one Machamp VMAX, the one you were showing, and then everything else is like an energy that you proxied and wrote Machamp on.
It's like the Guzzlord deck, but better.
Oh, good lord. Oh, we'll get into all of that at some other time, because we're hitting the point of our podcast where we need to wrap things up. And so, Dalton, do you want to close us out on where people can find us, on what we're going to be doing and heading into?
Yeah, I can do that. Maybe. So we are, Draw 4 Turn is obviously the name of the podcast. That is the name of the team. We are going to be launching, hopefully at this time when we have it published and everything. We will have YouTube channel. We will have Discord. We will have Twitter. I know we already have an Instagram. All of the fun social medias that you can touch base with us on there. So we are going to be variations of Draw 4 Turn, the number 4. So find us on there. That's where we will be at. You can see all of our hot takes or less hot takes and all of our Machamp picks. They'll all be right there. So that's where you can find us.
Awesome. Well, hey, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for checking it out. We'll definitely have more to come. We're going to be looking at hopefully doing once a week to every other week is kind of where to expect just the consistency of this as we are starting this up, getting this ready, and there will be more and more and more content, more and more news to come, and we are looking forward to building this up and creating this brand, and for you guys to come along on this journey for, like I said, puns, Draw 4 Turn. We're out.